As I took a deep dive into it, I was like, wow, there's a lot that's happening with me inside. And so I flushed it. I ended up writing it out and I held off on posting it for about a year and a half because the initial thought was that no one's going to find value in this too. And so I was like, I'm not as smart as other people as well. What do I have to bring? I was thinking about what are people's responses? Are people going to think that this is just a waste of time? It's not good. And all those things that come into play as well.
Hello, everyone. I am Hannah Bloking.
And I am Allison Macklick, and this is 4 Under 3, another episode of Imposter Talks. Hannah, what is Imposter Talks?
Imposter Talks is my medicine, I think. But I think the literal thing that it is that it's a weekly discussion with amazing individuals that we both either have known professionally or we've been introduced through our professional networks who are all very passionate about the topic of imposter syndrome and sharing their experiences and tips and tricks for others who have identified they feel this way sometimes to combat it and live their best life and do their best work. How did I do with that one?
Oh, that was perfect. Let's pull it out and be like, this is what we do. It's amazing. So I know we talked about this in the workshop, but 70% of professionals will admit that they felt their imposter. But I was just thinking as you were doing that lovely overview of what imposter talk is, it's everybody. It is truly everybody all the time. Like we recorded another episode this morning and the link wasn't working. Like the studio wasn't working. And I was like, I love this person. They're so amazing and brilliant. Are they going to think, what are they going to think? Like I felt it this morning. So it's constant. So that's why when you said your medicine, I was like, yeah, me too. Daily.
Yeah. Yes, perfect. And a real life example of the things that pop up every day. But we are here with an amazing guest. And Allison, I think you should introduce our guest for this week and how he came to be on our show today.
Yeah. So it's so funny, Hannah. You said that we talked to different professionals throughout our careers or introduced to wonderful, amazing people. This is actually the first time we've done like a cold outreach. And luckily, Alberto was like, yeah, I'm happy to chat. So I saw this LinkedIn post. We have a lot of mutual friends in common with the pre-sales collective, and we're all in this pre-sales world. And you posted a really, I would say, honest, real look at what it means to be a solution consultant. And the response was great. And so I just commented on your LinkedIn and I said, hi, we'd love to have you come on and share. And of course, you obliged. So everyone, we'd like to welcome to the podcast today, Alberto Escalante. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Welcome. Alberto, please tell us about yourself, a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been, it's really, really great to be here. I'm really excited to talk about this. It's funny because as I'm thinking about how I even got here, imposter syndrome definitely came up every step of the way. So I've actually I was originally a business development rep about 3.5 years ago. So my background's primarily in sales. And it's interesting because I also come from an acting background too, where it's really about helping to step in and making things real in imaginary circumstances. But how I got into the pre-sales role actually was even that felt very high risk for me. I think that's just what was going into my mind. Basically, what happened was that we had a new pre-sales leader who came in and I asked him, I said, hey, I didn't want to ask him for a job. I just said, hey, how do I get into that role? It doesn't have to be at this company, just best tips and practices. And so I think I just said that sort of as a buffer. It was like if he turned me down, it wouldn't hit as hard or anything like that. But I got what turned out to be I booked 15 minutes. It turned out to be a 30-minute interview. And he told me, he said, I want to give you a shot. So by the time I left that meeting, I already had a spot to be a solutions consultant. I had to wait about a year and a half because COVID happened. So when it finally happened, I was like, oh my God, this is for real. I'm stepping into something brand new that I've never done before, too. So I've been doing this role for the last 3.5 years now, too. And I got to say, it's an incredible career. It challenges me in a number of different ways. It challenges me in my thinking, also the way I relate even to myself, how much you need other people as well to just do this job. It's a team sport.
100%. And so I personally love talking to others that are in this pre-sales, technical sales role with a fine arts background. I actually have a fine arts background myself. I was a dance and choreography major in college, and it was obviously a long time ago now, but a lot has changed since then. And I know that it has confronted me a lot of times where that's been something that has actually been a source of imposter syndrome for me personally. That's really our first question for you, actually. So tell us a little bit about, what did imposter syndrome even mean to you? It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people and their experiences.
Yeah, the way that I like to think about it when it comes to imposter syndrome is that it's somebody who may not necessarily have the skills or the knowledge set yet to do something that they want to do, but they're stepping into the fire anyway. And as a result of that, they're using everything that they can to either compensate or camouflage sort of that lack of knowledge or that skill set that they don't possess yet. And so that's really the dance of it, is just trying to camouflage it. But at the same time, I think of it like this nagging feeling or thought in the back of your head that questions your worthiness and also your legitimacy and making you feel like a fraud, even though there's evidence that shows that you could be capable of being that one day as well.
Yeah, that's a good description. And I love bringing back the dance analogy too, because Hannah was a dancer. We're going to talk about dance. We're just going to keep talking about dance the whole episode. I love it. We might need to do something to show our audience what a good dancer you are. No pressure. Okay, so Alberto, you were sharing with us before we started recording. Tell us about, normally we like to say when you felt like an imposter, but even the way that you got to us on this show, it was almost you feeling like an imposter. So share with our audience about how the post came to be and how you got there.
Yeah. So I wrote an article and the title was Shame Held Me Back, Shifting Gears. That title even felt very vulnerable to me because sometimes it's hard to even admit that was even coming up. So I wrote this article about a year and a half ago, actually. So I took some time after about a year and a half into the pre-sales role, just thinking about what are the things that worked, what are things that didn't. And as I took a deep dive into it, I was like, wow, there's a lot that's happening with me inside. And so I flushed it. I ended up writing it out and I held off on posting it for about a year and a half because the initial thought was that no one's going to find value in this too. And so I was like, I'm not as smart as other people as well. So what do I have to bring? So it took me about a year and a half to even post that too. And I remember in my mind, I was thinking about what are people's responses? Are people going to think that this is just a waste of time? It's not good. And all those things that come into play as well. That's how I originally got it out there. At one point I said, I think it's just better to get it. I think it'll just be good for my heart. So I ended up just posting it out there. And I was like, okay, now my colleagues are going to see it and but the responses were really wonderful. I really wasn't expecting that at all. And it was food to the soul, but at the same time too, it was also in fact, there was somebody who commented saying that I'm going to have my whole team read this and we're going to talk about it at our meeting.
Wow.
So it actually just totally went against this preconceived idea of what I thought the responses were going to be around that article.
I think that opening up the conversation is so important, and it's so admirable that you put yourself out there and have really taken it upon yourself to lead discussion with your colleagues, because that's the number one thing that Allison and I talk about, is helping people feel like they're not alone with this feeling. So maybe if you could share maybe a recent or an example of an actual time that you felt that imposter syndrome creeping up, and just give a real life story of how it made you feel in the moment and how you in the moment combated it, and things that you thought about later that you could have done differently and that you've learned from.
Yeah, no, good question. It was actually pretty painful. This was one of my first demos. I can't recall which one it was, but I was doing a demo, and this was around the time I was pretty early on in my career. I was still trying to build up my technological skill set with it, how to speak about it, and at the same time also learn how to demo our platform. I remember going into the demonstration with an audience, I think it was about 10 people. And I remember all the way through, I was thinking, I hope nobody asks me a question about this, or maybe it's a specific piece of technology integration, what have you, because I was like, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't know how I'm going to camouflage it. And at the same time, while I'm doing this demo, the system is not behaving in the way that I need it to. It's like there's some lagging and it's really noticeably bad. And so we get off of the call, and I remember I had like hot flashes during the demonstration, and I'm trying to demo and have a conversation with people while at the same time trying to manage how I'm feeling, because like my heart's kind of racing underneath everything. What made it even worse is that when I got off of the call, there was a moment where I'm just trying to control my breathing and I'm trying to slow my thinking down and regroup. And then I end up getting a message from a sales leader, and sales leader's no longer there. I don't work with them, but he said, hey, you have a moment. pulls me into a Zoom meeting where it's me and the other account executive. And I actually thought it was going to be a call around what did we think? Let's debrief about this. But there was a moment where he just paused and he just said, I don't believe in your capabilities to move this. And so this is in front of the account executive. So it's adding more sort of salt and lemon to the wound. So I remember the first thing in my head, I was like, it's actually validating what I already believed about myself. It's actually true. So I remember that it was also, I was like, wow, it's everyone sees it too. I can't even camouflage it anymore. So I felt very exposed. And it's also, obviously, it's also recorded too, because we do record our calls. And wow, now it's there to be showcased for everybody. So I'd say that was probably the first time that I felt the imposter syndrome, probably really magnified as well. And I'd say that it actually bothered me for the entire afternoon. I don't think I ever felt that bad after a small
Oh, no.
demo. So it was pretty rough.
Okay, so what did you do? Like, how did you come back from that? Like, you obviously didn't
Yeah.
quit. You kept trying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of it is I think that, and this is one of the things that one of my first lessons is that whenever any kind of lie comes into your mind or any kind of harsh self-thinking, you, for me, the thing that helped me a lot is actually to come to truth as quickly as I can before that actually settles, because that can easily become a belief. So what I essentially started to do, and this is one of the first things I wrote about in this article, is that you can own where you are, but also own where you want to go. And part of that is, I think for me, it requires just being open. I was like, okay, I'm not where I want to be today, but I can own where I want to go. Here are my gaps. Can I learn those things? Yes, I'm perfectly capable of learning that technology set. Can I learn those soft skills? Absolutely. I don't possess that, but I have people who care about me who want to help. So I think getting as much to the truth as possible that brings you in a way that's forward, that's not shamey, is one of the best things that you can possibly do, because it does require you to step out of this dome of shames, oh, I'm terrible, or being your worst critic, but actually using that as a way to move you to something that's actually going to propel you forward. I think I'm forgetting the name of the leader, but he writes a lot of these leadership books, but he has this concept of failing forward. So I actually think about it in that respect too.
Think we all need to think about it in that respect. Like, I liked how you said too about don't let it become a belief. If it's a truth, like it's okay, find the truth, and then don't let it like become your identity of something that
Yeah.
you didn't do a great job on.
Yeah.
Just happened. Okay, let's move forward. Let's fail forward.
Yeah, that's the other part of it too, is I think and this is the part that's easier said than done. It's a lot of disrupting. I think that for me, it was a very emotional experience. I felt very exposed. So it took me a little bit of just having to disrupt it. I had to do it. And that's a constant thing is the imposter syndrome isn't just a one and done. It can come up with new skill sets. If I'm put into situations where there's something that I'm new that I have to be a subject matter expert on, that comes up a lot too. But I think the antidote is actually just, for one, is being a gentle, being really open, and also just being willing to see things in a way without shame. Because that, again, like what I was saying before, that's the best way for it to not kind of take a foothold in your mind.
Yeah, 100%. And just for the record, every pre-sales engineer has had that demo. I can remember mine earlier in my career. I was demoing an RFP, and I just remember it was such a disaster. And I remember escalations after it. And you know what? I never, ever made those mistakes again. And I had just never been in an RFP demo before. So it didn't even like dawn on me in my mind that's a different approach than like how we did our standard demos. Nobody told me. So these are just things that happen. And I know that now, like many years later as a leader, something that I look for is times where people did fail and it was how they responded to that failure. So I agree with everything that you said. But maybe just to take us home, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of our audience, because of our network, are pre-sales engineers. A lot of them are very new pre-sales engineers. Maybe some of them have had that moment themselves. Maybe they're afraid of that moment. So what would you say to those early stage pre-sales engineers who are thinking about that moment where they're going to have that demo and it's just going to blow up in their face for whatever reason? It's going to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, listen, this is a role that you're always going to be learning in as well. I think definitely approaching this with a lot of humility as well, too, because the mistake that I made was going into it like I have to know everything. The goal isn't necessarily that I have to have everything. It's how do I find the best answers as well? That does require being open, willing to learn, also willing to include other people into the fold as well. So otherwise, you're not feeling like you're tackling that alone. You have to have a team with that, and you need relationships to do that as well too. So again, I think if I could give one piece of advice to people who are stepping into this, because I wouldn't want people to learn it the way that I did, definitely don't do this alone. Don't do it in a silo as well. Do it with your team. You need people to pour into you as well to change your belief. If that's something that's settling into you, you need people to help you to renew that thinking as well. So just know that no one comes into this do it out of the gate doing this perfectly. Nobody does that too. You need people, you need knowledge, you need your team as well. And reflection helps that a lot. I love the idea of reflecting over constructive criticism because reflecting is like looking in the mirror. There's a gentleness to it. You're just seeing what's there. And like you're painting on the canvas, you're making discoveries, you're helping things come to shape. And those are things that you can bring into your tool set that'll help you to grow exponentially.
Yeah. And to be honest, you could be telling us anything and you have such a nice voice that I would just be listening. So thank you for sharing. When you said you were an actor, and yeah, your voice is perfect for a podcast. So thank you. And also, we get real over here. I failed my first certification ever, just failed it. Just didn't. Oh, you have to learn the tech. I had no concept, no idea. I talk about it a lot because I wanted to quit that second and run away and never come back. And I think Hannah knows this, but I watched the movie Pitch Perfect. That's how long ago it was when it was in the theaters.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's do this. So I'm like, okay, we all fail. Even like the greatest leaders that we know, nobody came out of the womb knowing what to do, especially this role. It's like the most random role I've ever had. And I love it. But something that you said, you just keep learning. I think people like us, personalities like us really excel in this role because you have to know we will fail and that'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start saying fail forward. I really like that.
It's unavoidable. It really is too. And I think the bouncing back is the most important. I think the learning is the part that helps you to bounce back the most because as you're making discoveries, these are things that you can get excited about. These are things that you can begin to change as well. And again, that carries you all the way through, even outside of this role too. It'll impact other areas of your life.
Absolutely. Alberto, it's been so fantastic to have you on today. So amazing, like how this organic conversation happened, where you made the post. Allison saw it, knew that it would resonate with our audience, and you agreed to be here. So thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure. Loved every minute of this.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Imposter Talks.
Subscribe and review our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube at 4 Under 3.
And we want to hear your imposter story. If you're interested in being a guest, please email us at info@4under3.io. Thanks so much.